Thank you so much for having us. It's been 5 years since I've been to Istanbul the last time, and I loved it so much in the week I spent here that I was very excited to come back. So thank you. About 5 years ago, I moved to Silicon Valley and started working with AngelList, which is a platform for investors in startups to connect. And they didn't know what to do with me when I arrived. And so I just started reviewing some of the pitches that were coming in. And I was the second employee. It was very early, and so there was not a lot of pitches, but they started to grow as AngelList started to grow. And I started managing all of the deal flow, eventually managing about 8 of the first 9,000 startup pitches that went through that platform. At the same time, I was doing some research at Oxford on how startups and investors connect, sort of a network analysis. And I really care about how they match. I left those two places, and then I joined Greylock for about 3.5 years as a director, and then I left recently. This isn't to put a bunch of logos up onto the screen, only to say that over 5 years, I've come to really care about how investors and startups meet each other, and how they connect, and how they match, and how that turns into investment. I really care about that. It matters to me, and I've started to wonder why some of them succeed and some of them fail. Some of the startups I've worked with, or the founders, have gone on to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and others have failed. And so I've been thinking a lot about why that happens, and what the great ones are doing, and what the rest of them are not. So that's what we're talking about today. Thank you. We're going to talk about 5 main pitch mistakes entrepreneurs often make, and we're going to talk about how to fix them. The first is probably the easiest to say and the hardest to do. They fail to tell a story. This is not bread. This is a collection of fucking ingredients, right? This is flour, this is egg, this is garlic, this is thyme. A lot of pitches actually look like this, because entrepreneurs think that they need to have a revenue slide, and a product slide, and a traction slide, and a team slide, and they do it like a checklist, and then they end up having a pitch that sounds like, and here's the problem, and here's the solution, and here's the product, and here's the traction, and here's the market, and it doesn't flow, it doesn't convince anybody. So I've been thinking a lot lately about how to do that, and how to fix this problem. And we've moved a little bit. I've been working recently with a handful of entrepreneurs, and we've moved from looking at a whole pitch to breaking it into a few pieces. And we call those pieces story arcs. So a story arc might be 2, 3, 4, 5 slides in a row, but it tells a story through those 5 slides. And you can give an arc a name. So this might be called pain and response, right? And if I was an entrepreneur, I might say, well, I worked as a marketing professional. I had this problem where there were no tools to solve that problem, so I wasted hours every week. I saw the pain firsthand. As I looked around in my company, I saw that there were dozens of people like me in my company with the same problem, and there are tens of thousands of people in the country with the same problem as us. There are millions like me, or maybe tens of thousands, whatever. So I left that company and I started this startup to solve that problem. We built a solution, and here's the product, right? So this is a story arc. This might be 4 or 5 slides, and it tells a pretty cohesive, smooth story through all of it. Now there's 2 reasons why this seems to be working well. The first is that once you have all of these arcs, and you might have many different ones, and some of them might have the same slides. They might address things like the differentiation and how you're different than your competitors, or how you see the future, or what you know that the rest of the world does not know. Once you have 10 or 12 or 15 of these, they actually assemble very nicely into pitch, into 1 or 2 or 3 different versions of a pitch. So for example, we talked about pain and response. The next arc after that, the next story might be, it's working. Okay, so I was a marketing professional. I had this problem. I wasted tons of time. I noticed there were millions of people like me, so I started a company, we built this product, and then it's working. We launched it to many users, engagement is high, it's growing, and then it's spreading to a big place. Might be the third arc, which might say, we're ramping up our sales, here's how we think about sales, we're addressing this market, and there's a huge market opportunity there. I'm not saying this is right. There might be 2 other versions of their pitch that might work for them. But the first reason it works well is because these story arcs combine really easily to make a great pitch. The second reason, which surprised me, that people seem to love it, is that when we get to the stage where they have all these different story arcs, they seem very relieved. I see the entrepreneur go, and I wonder, why is that? Why is that? I think it's because people are scared that they're going to need to know all the answers in a pitch, that they're going to be challenged. And when you have all of this, even if it doesn't go in the main pitch and it's somewhere in the appendix or it's just in your head, you can answer all of these different questions already because you've thought about these things. And so it tends to be a very good thing. So a pitch is a story, and you can build it by building story arcs. The second thing that entrepreneurs tend to do wrong is that they don't think at an investor's level. And I don't mean better or worse. I don't mean that there's stronger thinkers or weaker thinkers. I only mean that there are different wavelengths, I think. Let me show you. Oh, I'm going to go back. So I think entrepreneurs live at execution. Let's start at the bottom. Entrepreneurs are execution machines. Every day, every week, they need to figure out how to build products, how to sell, how to hire. They need to do all these details. They're very, very good at talking about execution. And most entrepreneurs are actually very good at stepping up one level and talking about their company vision, what they're trying to do. They need to do that because they need to talk to their employees, right? They need to talk to their team. Most entrepreneurs are not great at talking about the top wavelength, which is how the world is changing. But investors live at this level because they're not building anything every day or every week. They're really meeting a lot of different people. They're thinking about how the world is changing, where that creates opportunities, and then they're trying to find companies that satisfy those opportunities. So the question is how to help, and honestly, the best entrepreneurs do hit the top level. The most exciting pitches I've been in are ones where the entrepreneur is teaching the investors something about the world, and they have a strong opinion. How are people changing? How is user behavior changing? How is the technology landscape changing? I don't know. So the question is how to do this. The simple question that I like to ask that helps with this is the first one. Why is now the only time this company could be built? So if you're pitching now in October 2015, why is October 2015 the only time this company could be built? Why not 2010? And why not 2020? This helps pull out examples of what's changing and why opportunity is being created. The second question, which works fairly well with it, is why is this the only team that could build this company, right? So let me give you an example. I like to go back a few years. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but the time when Zynga got very, very big, right? That was probably 2007, 8, 9. I can't remember exactly, 2008. Zynga had a window of opportunity to use Facebook as a platform and connect with hundreds of millions of users that they did not have 3 years before that. And a window of opportunity that has closed since. And that opportunity was Facebook was introducing new user interface, which was the news feed, and they were opening that up to their platform, right? And Zynga knew this, and they were one of the very few companies that was able to jump through the window and use that opportunity on Facebook and combine it with relatively new research in how to addict users, unfortunately. But that was the only time. And actually, you can answer the second question, too. Why was Zynga the only company that could do that? Well, you could look back at Mark Pincus's background. He started a previous company called Tribe.net, which was eventually not successful, but for a while it was quite successful, which was a social network. So he had already started a social network, and he knew exactly how people connected in social networks, and he knew how to exploit that or how to use that for Zynga when he had this moment of opportunity for Facebook. So I think this is a fun question. Why is now the only time that this company could be built? So what's changing in the world, or what has changed in the world? The third thing entrepreneurs often get wrong is that they think a pitch is rational. This is a strange thing to say because it seems to make sense that investors are smart, right? Investors follow a logical line of thinking, and And they build a case, a logical case for why to invest. But that's not the case. If you look at the companies at the earliest stages, they're stupid. It's stupid to invest in a company when it's at seed stage or A. Most of them fail. Most investors lose money by investing in those companies. Instead of rational, I mean, they all do some analysis, but usually they're looking for excitement and they're looking for intuition, right? This is the simplest way I can think of to look at this. Company on the left gets funded. Company on the right doesn't. Green is excitement, red is hesitation, right? When the excitement of an investor is larger than their hesitation, then you have a good chance of raising money. And when the hesitation outweighs the excitement, it's the other way. So the question is how to figure this out, right? How to figure out what is exciting about your company and what you have to tell a story about, right? The way I like to do this is to play a game I call the excitement and hesitation game. I'm not very good at naming. But when you have a draft of a pitch, and you're giving it to your first few practice pitches, right? So you're giving 5 or 10 people who can tell you what is weak and strong about your pitch. Ask them to do this. Ask them to take a piece of paper, draw a line down it, and put excitement on the left and hesitation on the right. And every time you say something or they think something that they get excited about in terms of your business, just ask them to take a note. And similarly, anytime there's a hesitation and they think, that's weird, that's not a good thing, ask them to write it down. And you'll find after 5 or 10 pitches that the same things are coming up between different practice pitches. And you'll say, these 3 or 4 things, people seem to be getting really excited about these 3 or 4 things. And these 3 or 4 things people are starting to hesitate about. And so you make sure that the things that people are excited about are early in the pitch, are clear, you're telling a great, focused story about. And the hesitations you have to deal with, because the hesitations will stay in somebody's head the whole time that they're listening to your pitch. There was one example that just totally stuck out to me lately. I work a lot with Brazilian startups in Silicon Valley. And there seems to be a lot of really good companies that are coming out of Brazil, but not all of them are great at telling their story and pitching. And so I was listening to this one pitch, and it was something like 30 slides long, which is way too long, way too much information. And for the first 26 slides, I was wondering, is this company real? Has this company actually built anything? Has it gone to market? Have people started using what they've built? Is it working? I could not listen to the pitch because I was wondering the whole time, is this company even real? It was all concepts and sort of, it was all conceptual. And then he got to the 27th slide, and not even the main part of the slide, but the side of the slide was the fact that over 3/4 of e-commerce companies in Brazil use their software. And their revenue was in the millions. I thought, holy shit, why are you waiting until the 27th slide to tell me this? This is something that should be at the very beginning of the story. All of a sudden, that was a very exciting company to me because they were real. But for so long, I was wondering. And so try this. Try excitement and hesitation and see what emerges for your company. The fourth one, which is similar, and it's kind of counterintuitive, it seems strange, is that I think entrepreneurs try too hard to be credible, right? Credible means that if somebody challenges you, you can defend it, and you can defend anything. And I think the people who do this the most are people who have been in consulting, like at McKinsey or BCG, and then they start a company, or people who have been in research, who have done a PhD, or people who come from the medical field. But all these places where you have to be credible. If people challenge what you're saying and what you're thinking, you have to defend yourself, right? The problem, at least in places where there are many entrepreneurs and many startups, is that everybody is credible. I can't throw a rock in San Francisco without hitting a Stanford graduate. So credible is not separate you from anything. Credible doesn't set you apart. Instead, you want to be unique and special, right? Different. The company version of this is that way too many companies, if you ask them what they do, they start with something like, oh, we're in the B2B space and we build SaaS software for company collaboration. I don't know what that is. Nobody knows what that is. And 15 people have told me the same thing. Be specific. so that I know that you're different and that I know that you're unique. It's scary to be specific. It's scary because people can challenge you and they can say, oh, that's stupid. And if you stay general and vague, nobody can challenge you. But also, nobody wants to get on your team if you're just super vague. I was working with a friend on his pitch quite a while ago, and we were trying to figure out how to tell the story of his team. And his co-founder was a Stanford computer science graduate, so she was smart. But that wasn't enough, and so we talked about it, and we realized that she had worked at the Stanford Linear Accelerator, so where they accelerate particles to study essentially particle physics. And we thought, holy shit, she has written code that powers the world's largest laser. That is awesome. Say that. Or at least start with that. She has powered the world's largest laser, and she comes from Stanford. At least people will remember it then. The last thing, again, it seems easy to do, is that entrepreneurs find it hard to cut the shit out of their pitch. They want to include everything because, oh, here's another piece of information that can convince people, and this is also positive, and this is also positive. So here's the story I like to tell. A few years ago, I was a part of a photography community. Good photographers, maybe a couple 100,000, and I wanted to come across as a good photographer. So in my portfolio, I realized if I put my best 3 photos that I'd ever taken, people would look at those photos and they would say, Brendan is an amazing photographer. And if I added the 4th best, 5th best, 10th best photos, they would look at it and they would say, Brendan is a pretty good photographer. And if I added my 100 best, they would look at it and they would say, Brendan is a very average photographer with 3 amazing photos, right? The next best and the next best and the next best thing just get weaker and weaker. And when you add more stuff to your pitch, investors see that. They see where the weak point is. And worse than that, it distracts from the most important things. I'm a really strong believer in the view that perfection really only occurs when there's nothing left to take away. So try to cut the shit. Again, it's hard because every piece is positive, but if it's weak and positive, it won't help, and it distracts you from the few things that are really, really important. That's what I have. 5 things you can do better. Try to tell a story and do it through story arcs. Try to think at an investor's level by asking why is now the only time that I could build this, and taking the answers to that and telling that story. Try to be exciting and figure out what is exciting about what you do. Try to be unique and different. It's scary, I know. Try not to be like everybody else. And then just try to cut everything that distracts from your pitch. I hope it works. I really want it to succeed. I really want it to work out for you. Thank you for your time.